So my herb garden is kind of at the peak of its growth. It's so beautiful and wonderful, and it means that I need to get using them before they go to waste and it gets cold. But I thought I would share with you today some of the ways that I love to use my herbs and kind of talk about my favorite herbs that I love to grow in my kitchen or herb garden. Now, if you remember, I shared early on in the season these Earth Easy garden boxes that we built here just off the back patio. They are so beautiful. The plants have just thrived in here, and I just think they're stunning. So if you want to check out that video to learn more about these garden boxes, please do. I'll leave it in the link below where you can learn more about Earth Easy and their products. But today I just want to go through, harvest some of these herbs, and share with you what I'm doing with them. First is the most obvious thing that you can do with herbs, especially when you have a ton of them, is to dry them. And I like to do this a few different ways. I like to grab just little bundles of each one and wrap around an elastic and just hang them around my house. I think it just doubles as the cutest decor, especially during the fall season and even summer if you have them available. But they're just so cute, all bundled up and tied around your house. So those are really convenient too. You can just grab from them when you're cooking in the kitchen. Now, for all herbs, before you dry them, you want to wash them and separate them from the stems. But the other way I like to dry them is to use my little hanging dryer. That's really nice this time of year when you have reliable sun, and you can put it in a spot that has some shade as well. So I love this little stacked herb dryer. I'll leave a link for that below. But you can also dry them in like a dehydrator. If you know it's going to be rainy or not warm enough outside for them to dry, you can use a dehydrator, which works great and is really reliable. Okay, so the first herb I want to highlight is my basil. And I have sweet basil. That's the one I like to use a lot for eating, making pestos and whatnot. And then I have holy basil, which it's my favorite smell in the basil family, but also it's a very medicinal variety. So I like to use that one, just dry it and keep it stored in the house. But I washed and dried a whole bunch of my sweet basil. One of the things I just have to do when I get that in the house is make a little Capri salad. So delicious. If you have a fresh sun-ripened tomato, which I grabbed from my garden, you just sprinkle some salt and pepper, some chopped basil, mozzarella cheese, and a little bit of balsamic glaze. It's the best way, I think, to use those tomatoes from the garden and your basil. Now, basil is also a tricky one. Sometimes when it's dry, it just doesn't have that similar fresh taste. So a way that I like to preserve the fresh flavor is to make these frozen basil cubes. So I just get the sweet basil, add a little olive oil to my food processor, and get it all chopped up. And then you can get like an ice cube tray. I have these little silicone trays that are like the perfect size for this. But you just spoon this chopped up basil into these little trays, and then you can top it off with some olive oil to kind of submerge everything in there, and then you just freeze them. And then you have these cubes that you can easily pull out if you're making like a marinara sauce or any other meal that would be delicious with some basil flavor. Now, I have a blog post on my blog rounding up a ton of great ways for you to use your basil, and I also have a basil iced tea recipe over on my blog, which you can enjoy. Oh, and there's also the pesto. So a few recipes already at tidbitsandcompany.com for you. Okay, let's move on to the peppermint. And I planted a few varieties of peppermint, and they all just kind of grew up together. So I'm not really sure which ones I got, but it's all great together anyway. So one thing I usually have to do when I clip some fresh peppermint is make a quick cup of warm peppermint tea. Peppermint is so soothing for your guts, and especially when it's in its warm form. If you are feeling bloated, crampy, or just overall your digestion could use some assistance, a warm cup of peppermint iced tea is so wonderful. You can just feel it cooling your intestines down. I love it. Now, often you have some extra herbs. Just a quick tip is to put them in a little Ziploc bag or a jar with a paper towel and keep it in the fridge. Then you have them quick to grab when you want to make another cup of tea or throw them in a meal. I love using this little glass teapot where you can steep the herbs right inside of the little filter part. I love seeing the color come out, and it's a great teapot if you're just doing small batches. So I'll show you here how I just make up a quick cup of warm tea. It's ideal to let it cool down before you add any honey, simply because high heats can destroy some of the really beneficial properties in honey, but I was feeling impatient. So you just spoon a little teaspoon of honey in there, and then I love to add a bit of raw milk or raw cream into my cup of herbal tea. It just makes it taste so yummy. It just feels refreshing and delightful, and is a special way to use the herbs from your garden. And you can do this with a lot of herbs, not just peppermint, but I particularly enjoy peppermint just for the digestive benefits. And it did not take long before my kids smelled the tea. So they came running. I love that my kids enjoy this little treat with me, and it's fun to expose them to different tastes and flavors of herbs while they're young. That's something I knew nothing about when I was a kid, so it's really fun to discover this with them. Another amazing way to use peppermint is to make some extract, and I made a ton last year, and thankfully I used vodka as the liquid substrate for that, so it lasts several years. But you can make mint extract. It's delicious. It uses up a lot of herbs, but I've also been trying to learn different ways as well. So we rounded up a blog post with so many ways that you can use fresh mint from your herb garden. I'm really excited to try a few of these ideas. Okay, next herb I want to highlight is lemon balm, and I'm going to get my big teapot going for this, full of water, because I want to make a big batch of lemon balm iced tea. Lemon balm is becoming one of my favorite herbs of all time. It just has the most calming, soothing properties. I feel so good after drinking a cup of lemon balm iced tea. And here's the fun thing with lemon balm is well, my kids call it Fruit Loop tea because it almost tastes like Fruit Loop cereal. When you add a little scoop of honey in there, it just has that reminiscent flavor. It's so delightful, from the taste to the beneficial properties of the lemon balm herb. It's just one of my favorites. So making this tea is pretty much the same as the peppermint tea, but I'm making it here in a bigger batch. I just filled up a 2-quart jar, about a third away full, with the lemon balm, and then filled up the rest with piping hot water. You let it steep for as long as you want. Sometimes I've let it go for hours, but really just after about 20 minutes or so, it's still pretty good. Once it's cooled down quite a bit so that you don't ruin the honey, you can add another scoop of honey to give it that sweetness. So this is more like a sweet iced tea, which is so wonderful, especially during the hot months of summer and into early fall. So you can keep that in the fridge for like up to a week, or just serve it right away with a cup full of ice. It's fun to garnish it with a couple of lemon balm sprigs. Just make it a really pretty special treat on a hot day. I would love to hear in the comments below if you've ever tried lemon balm. It's also delicious chopped up in salads. I just love the lemon flavor. Oh, it's just one of my favorites, and I'd love to hear how you like to use it. Okay, now we're going to highlight an idea to use your rosemary. I have to give credit where credit's due. This is my daughter Kate's obsession. She loves all things hair, and she has been making this rosemary hair tea or rosemary water. But I'll show you in a minute the benefits of this, but it's just amazing. So she taught me how to do this. You get about 4 sprigs of rosemary. You can add some peppermint as well, because peppermint's really cooling on the head. And you simmer that for like 20 minutes. I will write this out in a blog post so you guys can get the exact things easily on a printable recipe card. But once that's boiled and cooled down, you strain it out and just bottle it up. And depending on if you put a lid on or not, depends on how much water loss you'll have, but you'll basically fill a water bottle, and then you can add some water to just top the bottle off and make it go further. But she has been spraying this on her hair for like a month, and I cannot believe the results. So rosemary is really good for hair growth and thickness. It cuts grease, so it can be used almost like a dry shampoo. But this girl has been dedicated. Just look at these locks. I mean, I've never seen such beautiful hair. It is so smooth and healthy. She sprays it on her roots every morning and night. And look at this hair growth that has come after a month Or no, she's probably been doing it for 2 months, but we saw immediate growth like this in her hair just after about 4 weeks. So check out the blog post for our rosemary hair water if you want to learn more about how to make this yourself. Okay, I spent most of the day just playing with my herbs, and now it was time to make dinner. So I'm going to show you how I use some of these fresh herbs just to flavor our meals. So I cut some thyme, some oregano, some parsley. These are ones I'm constantly reaching for to flavor our meals, even though dried herbs are great as well. But if I can use fresh, I'm going to. They just, anytime you throw them in a meal, they just taste so fresh. So I love it. So tonight I was making one of my early fall favorites, a zucchini skillet, and I just loaded it with those herbs that I cut from the garden. And as I was making this, I was thinking I might as well make a blog post for you so you can get this recipe. So that is all over at tidbitsandcompany.com if you want to get this recipe. But it's a fantastic way to use all that zucchini that's in abundance in the garden. Great way for the kids to get to eat it. You can dice up the zucchini really small. But anyway, it was delicious with all these fresh herbs in it. You can broil cheese on top and then use it as like a chip dip. So here I am kind of garnishing this dish with some parsley. It made my photos for my blog post just look beautiful. To get your kids to eat it, just give them chips and let them eat it as a dip. It is so delicious. I also made a blog post for our family's favorite fresh peach pie. This is the delight of the season for me. So head over to tidbitsandcompany.com to get this recipe, but garnished with a bit of mint. It was absolutely beautiful. Well, my friends, I hope you enjoyed this quick little video as I shared with you some of the ways I love to use my herbs from my herb garden. It's a great joy of mine, and I hope it motivated you to do the same. All right, I will be back very soon to share more inspiration for the keeper of the home.